Okay, so that was the introduction to the seeds, and let's go now look at what the studies show. Because one study, let's look at one study. So one study I'm going to start with where they gave women, pardon me, don't look at that slide for a minute. Let me go back to this slide. Sorry about that. I want to just you focus on me for a minute because I'm not doing the slide. Because this is a study which is a double-blinded controlled study where the participants didn't know who was getting the muffin that had the flax seeds or not. The participants were just getting a muffin. They were still eating their standard American diet, and one group got a muffin, and the other group got the same tasting muffin, but one had flax seeds and one didn't. And they didn't know which had which. And the doctors and pathologists reviewing the breast cancer, 6 weeks later, they were biopsying their breasts, women who had breast cancer already, and they did re-biopsies of the cancer cells in the breast to see the difference in pathology 6 weeks later from eating the flaxseed muffin. And what do you think they found? Dramatic benefits. 6 weeks with a flaxseed muffin, dramatic benefits. People already had a diagnosis of cancer. You saw apoptosis, death of cancer cells, just from the flax seeds, regression of the proliferatory signaling. In other words, the cells stopped replicating. You already showed, doctors know that people that women who are diagnosed with breast cancer, that a certain percent of them go on for the cancers to get worse, and a certain percent of them do go on for the cancers to get better and go in the opposite direction. Early stage cancer can go back the other way with no dietary intervention, just because it just happens sometimes. But if you want to stack the odds in your favor of having the cancer grow the other direction, especially the earlier it is, then you do the right things. And having the lignins from flax seeds, stack it in your favor. Just the lignins from the flax seeds. That's just one intervention. Forget about the mushrooms and all the other things we're going to do, the green vegetables and the berries and all the other things that have powerful effects. But just the lignins from flax seeds show powerful effects. So now they did a 10-year study, right? Not a 6-week study with a muffin. And now they tracked the amount of lignins women ate over the 10-year period. And these women were all diagnosed with breast cancer. They followed them for 10 years. And those in the highest quartile of lignin consumption had a 71% decreased mortality from breast cancer. That's huge. It's especially huge when you consider these people already had cancer, breast cancer, that's relatively advanced. Imagine how protective it would have been had they started taking it before they had a diagnosis of cancer. Or got cancer in the earlier stages, not after it was diagnosed in the late stages. You following that? All diagnosed cancer is in the late stages. All right, so look at the number here now. Look at that number in the highest quartile. 1/3 of a milligram of lignin. That means these women ate maybe a little bit of sesame seeds, a little bit of broccoli stems or pineapple, or a little bit of flax seeds, because they were only eating 1/3 of a milligram of lignin. How many lignins are in a tablespoon of flaxseed? Anybody know? Take a wild guess. 500? Good guess. It's about 21 milligrams of lignin in a tablespoon of flax. It's 7 milligrams per teaspoon. And these women in the highest quartile of consumption were just eating 1/3 of 1 milligram. They weren't eating 1/10 of it. They're just eating hardly any lignins, and they saw this degree of protection. Do you get my point? What if they started it earlier in life? What if they took a reasonable amount of flaxseed or sesame seeds or chia seeds, because the studies on men and prostate cancer show when you go from a teaspoon to a tablespoon, you see dramatically even more reductions in protection against prostate cancer. We'd expect the same thing to occur with women when they go from a teaspoon to a tablespoon, and here they weren't even consuming 1/10 of a teaspoon. And they were doing it late in life. We're talking here about that these foods have powerful protection. Food is our most powerful medicine. There's no medicines that can do what food can do, that can do this kind of stuff. Without side effects. The only side effects are good things that are happening to you. Protects against heart attacks and strokes and dementia in the process. And tomatoes are pretty good stuff, right? Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, but not just lycopene. They have other beneficial phytonutrients. And they protect against breast cancer and colorectal cancer and lung cancer. Some people think the whole benefit of the Mediterranean diet, almost all of it, is mostly because people eat tomato sauce over there. I grow tomatoes. I grow more than I could possibly eat, so I can make them into sauces. And I went to Italy, and we went to a nutritarian hotel in Italy, where we held a getaway over there. For people would come and we taught them nutrition there. But this hotel does nutritarian eating all year round, and serves these kind of foods there. And the people who owned the hotel gave me a gift of this this Italian thing that you put the tomatoes in, you crank it by hand, and it takes the skins and seeds out of the tomatoes so you can make it into the sauce, because I knew I love to make tomato sauce. But I don't tell them this, but I don't really use that machine because I like to use the seeds and the skin with my tomato sauce. Why not get all the benefit? Why should I throw any of it away, I mix it in my Vitamix, and I make I cook it on a low flame. I cook it for a long time to push a lot of the water out. I put garlic in there, and onion in there, and mushroom in there, and I cook it. And I use all these fresh gourmet tomatoes that I grow, and then it's a lot of fun to make homemade tomato sauce. But cooked tomatoes, products like tomato sauce, makes the lycopene and these beneficial anti-cancer compounds more absorbable and even more beneficial. Not that tomatoes raw aren't great, they are, but we're seeing dramatic reduction in breast cancer and prostate cancer from the use of tomato products and tomato sauces, which taste great. Right? I'll take some of the homemade tomato sauce. Maybe I have roasted garlic or maybe sun-dried tomatoes in it added. But I buy these special sun-dried tomatoes. And I also dry my own sun-dried tomatoes too when I have it left over. But I buy these sun-dried tomatoes that I found that I order over the internet that have no salt in them and no oil in them and they're organic and they're not fumigated. There's nothing in them. Just plain tomatoes that have been sun-dried. That's it. I'm not going to tell you where because I don't remember. But anyway, and they're delicious. You can rehydrate and put them in a little bag with a little bit of water in them and rehydrate them. You can eat them as part of. You can put them on sandwiches. You can make them in sauces. So let me get to this tomato sauce I was making. So I'm making this. I put a little tomato sauce in the blender, maybe with a little fig vinegar, and maybe a little raisin or fig. But maybe I'll put a little roasted garlic in there, or either black fig or balsamic vinegar. And I put almonds and sunflower seeds in there. So in other words, when I use a red sauce, I'm using a dark vinegar. When I make a light dressing, a fruit-based dressing, I use a lighter color, or an orange or a mango vinaigrette or something like that. So I'll combine, when I put that little dark vinegar in, I'll put a little bit of sweetening into it, maybe just a couple of raisins or a half a fig with the fig vinegar, just to give it that flavor. But the contrast in flavors makes a great salad dressing. And then you use the key here is to use the nuts and seeds as your salad dressing in place of using oil, because they have completely different biological effects. All right? So I want to make it clear that cooking all food isn't bad. Cooking some foods like beans and mushrooms and making soups and stews is good. And tomatoes is good. And adding carrots, yes. I had said it's that there's, number one, they're not the cleanest food, and you don't know how they were, where they came from, even when they're organic. Because there could be organic matter in the mushroom with all those crevices and they're better to wash them and to cook them. But I said there's a mild carcinogen in mushrooms called agarotine. Didn't I mention that at this lecture? Yeah. And then that gets blown off with just a few minutes of cooking. And so I'll have cooked mushrooms already prepared in my refrigerator cold. They'll be cooked first, and I save them cold, so if I want to sprinkle some on top of a salad, I can do so. I can put a little cooked mushrooms that I kept cold in my refrigerator. I always keep a couple of bulbs of roasted garlic already made in there, sometimes made into a garlic nutter, like a garlic butter made with roasted garlic, maybe a little walnuts blended in, or walnuts and cashews blended in. I can use it as a spread, or mix it with basil and turn it into a pesto for a spread for a portobello sandwich with red onion and tomato and the pesto I just made, or an apple. I'll make some. I keep the stuff already made so I can put together food really quick, and make it really taste delicious. I want people to really enjoy eating a healthy diet. This doesn't have to take a second seat to good taste, and there are gourmet restaurants now that serve nutritarian food. The question is, if I grind my flax, did you ever try to eat flax not ground? Yeah. The point, it's a good point though, but the point is that the flax seeds should be ground, because you can't, if you eat it not ground, it sticks to the wall of your mouth. It takes 4 hours to get it out, and you can't, and also, plus you don't want to swallow the seeds whole, because you're not going to digest them. You're just going to be fertilizing new flax plants, making new flax plants around the earth. That's if you defecate in the woods, and you cover it with. Your question is, if you dehydrate the mushrooms, does that give you the benefits of cooking it? Does it have to remove the agarotine as cooking it does? I think it does remove some of the agarotine, but not as much as cooking does.
Do you sprout the flax? Soak it in water?
Do I sprout the flax? No. It doesn't mean I'm not saying it's not good for you to do it. It might be very good I don't know that flax might be very good sprouted. If it's a seed, it's live, it can sprout it, and eat anything sprouted, sure. Okay, so to review now, because I want to make sure that you guys are understanding the concepts of a nutritarian diet. I focus on superfoods, some of these salient features of foods, their nutrient density. I want your diet to be vegetable-based. That means the majority of what you eat, at least by volume, should be vegetables, probably by calories too. But the majority of vegetable-based. The American diet is plant-based because the majority of what Americans are eating now is plants. They only eat 30% of calories from animal products. It's just most of the plants they eat are processed foods. Processed plants, like Coca-Cola and French fries and potato chips are plants, come from plants, right? So a nutritarian diet and the American diet is grain-based. Most of the calories come from grains. Not that we can't eat any whole grains, but I want you to eat more mostly vegetables, because they have more powerful longevity benefits. And I want you to eat a lot of fruits, beans, nuts, and seeds. What I'm saying, these three basic factors, right? I'm saying to you that these are things that all nutritional scientists can't disagree with. There's 90% of the non-biased, non-commercial interested, people who have the scientists who are not working for a commercial company or on their payroll, that have no commercial interests, all agree that modern populations do not eat sufficient produce. We have to eat much more produce, and we have to eat less animal products. That's not controversial. There's no controversy or disagreement here among scientists. The controversy is among lay people, not among scientists. And there's no controversy that we shouldn't be eating high glycemic refined carbohydrates like white sugar and white flour. There's no controversy among scientists here. Oil is also calorically dense and fattening. And a lot of people on plant-based diets, which are eating a lot of oil, and the average American is consuming 400 calories from oil a day. That's a huge amount of concentrated calories that have no significant micronutrient load. The more calories you put in your body without a nutritional load, the more it weakens your health and shortens your lifespan. Because think about this. I'm telling you that the health benefits of walnuts and flax seeds and pistachio nuts, right? I'm telling you about how beneficial it is to eat these nuts and seeds. The whole point is supposed to eat those nuts and seeds instead of using the oil, not to use it on top of the oil. Make your salad dressing with nuts and seeds. Make your sauces and your dips with nuts and seeds. Utilize them and get the oil out of your diet, because oil is processed in a way that the calories are rapidly absorbed so fast into the bloodstream that they have to be stored as fat. You can't burn them for energy because the calories rush in too concentrated a form. And animal products, if you're going to eat them, have to be used sparingly. And I say, like maximum maybe 8 to 10 ounces a week, maybe 6 to 8 ounces for a woman, 8 to 10 for a man. If you use it as a condiment, as a flavoring. If a person is a meat lover, they don't want to give up animal products no matter what, then they can eat just a little bit of animal product. Even some people, so in other words, even those people who will never be a vegan, they still should cut back their animal products radically. Did you follow that? Why should they commit suicide with food over wrong information? Because if you don't want to give up your beef, you can still have a beef burger with 1 ounce of beef in it. It could be made out of mushrooms and oats and beans and walnuts ground together. You could take a 4-ounce piece of beef and make it for 8 people or 8 burgers, and you could put it on the barbecue. Make sure you have a lot of heterocyclic amines to make it more carcinogenic, of course. But the point is that these people can use animal products as a condiment or a flavoring if they don't want to give it up, and they still don't want to sit down and put a big section of that animal right on their plate and eat it, a big giant piece of it, because you don't want to make it the main point of what you're eating, because it's going to take away from the amount of foods you should be eating. Besides the fact that it has disease-promoting effects, it also reduces by your percent of calories. You have to get it relatively low so you can have a room in your stomach to eat all the healthy foods you need to eat, right? It's called replacement. That's where the studies on saturated fat, where people are saying that saturated fat is good, not bad. It's good to eat butter now, right? Butter is back. Bacon is back, right? Because the studies show that when people cut back the fat in their diet and ate more refined carbohydrates, like white flour products like bagels and bread, their heart disease rates didn't go down, they went up. That doesn't, absolve butter of being dangerous or bacon of being dangerous just because sugar is worse. Did you follow that? Because one thing is because things are equally bad doesn't make it good. It's like buying a car by comparing it to a junkyard wreck. We have to, in other words, they're both bad. Half of nutritional science is crazy because they don't even know the people doing the studies don't even know what to study. So they're studying the wrong things, you know, seeing whether it's better to use oil or whether to use oil versus white flour, or you know, or it's crazy. So we have to focus on nutrient-dense calories, and oil is a perfect example of a nutrient-poor calorie, right? All oil. You don't have to ask me about flax oil, coconut oil, olive oil, oil from the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. It doesn't matter. Whatever oil you can mention, it's all mostly calorically dense, 120 calories per tablespoon with no significant nutrient load. So more greens, more beans, more nuts and seeds in the diet, right? Means less animal products and less carbohydrates, less highly refined carbohydrates. More beans, more greens, more nuts and seeds means dramatic lowering of the glycemic effect of the diet. And as I explained to you, biochemical effects that reduce the glycemic effect of other foods, and they dramatically improve diabetic parameter. So here's a study, a pilot study we did on 11 people who were on a nutritarian diet for 7 months, and they lost weight. They all became non-diabetic. In other words, their hemoglobin A1C, the non-diabetic range is below 6, and even the one who was left on glucophage had a hemoglobin A1C below 6. His doctor just left him on it. He didn't need it anymore. He was just left on it. But they all essentially became non-diabetic. Look at how much their blood pressure dropped. 60% of blood pressure medications were reduced over that 7-month period, and more of them should have been reduced, but their blood pressure dropped about 27 points, and of course their triglycerides dropped 70 points. In other words, they became normal again. They lost their weight, they got rid of their diabetes. Pretty easy to get rid of their diabetes on this study, and now we're doing a larger control trial, which I'm really excited about.